I love this part of the song. All right, what's going on, everyone? My name is Steve Oatley. This show is called Freight Broker Live, the one and only talk show run by an actual freight broker. For now. There'll probably be more because people are getting annoyed at the industry. People are getting annoyed across the board. Anyway, so today is May 21st. It's 2:02 on the East Coast. Today we got a big show. We're going to talk about the new unemployment numbers. We're going to talk about some layoffs that we're hearing about today and some that we haven't even really been able to confirm that are apparently in the pipeline that haven't happened yet. We're also going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, freight tech and different in ways that tech-enabled or small brokers can become tech-enabled, and carriers for that matter, because you guys everybody needs to do it. And, our sponsor, Ascend TMS, has released all new functionality too. And the guy's also an economic guy. So he has a degree in economics, I think. Tim Higham. I said his name wrong the entire time, but he's going to be on. He's the president and CEO of InMotion Global, which is whatever. They are the makers of Ascend TMS, and they have so much new functionality. It's like every week we have to put out a press release because they have new functionality every single day. The new updates that they have now, they've integrated kites. I wrote a pretty big article on it this morning. That is something that everyone needs to pay attention to. I'm also sweating, so don't I see the sweat showing in my show. I'm drinking coffee because I'm tired. Anyway, and it's hot in here. Whatever. So without further ado, here's a little commercial. Let's play the Ascend commercial because they are my sponsor for the month, and I'll be right back in 1 minute.
Aren't you tired of your outdated server installed TMS? Are you stuck with a software that looks like it was developed when the Matrix movie was popular? Well, Ascend TMS is here to bring you to the actual future of TMS solutions. You can literally get started in less than 15 seconds. Ascend TMS is one of the only true cloud-based TMS softwares on the market. Where other softwares could take weeks or even months to implement, Ascend TMS just takes a few moments. See, we actually timed it. And what about features? I think we have you covered there. Here at Ascend TMS, we're so confident you'll make your business more efficient and profitable in your first 30 days, we give it to you for free. So what are you waiting for? Sign up today at thefreetms.com.
Put this down. There we go. All right. So yeah, Ascend TMS. Tim is going to be on with us at what time? 2:30. So in another 25 minutes, he'll come on and we'll talk a little bit and then go from there. I don't know if the video is frozen. It's not on my end. So let's first talk about the unemployment numbers, man. So we know that the coronavirus is destroying everything everywhere. States are I watched a viral video yesterday. It had, I think, 600,000 views. It was about a Marine that owns a couple of gyms in North Carolina, or he owns one gym. And he decided to open up because they're still not open. They're under a phase 1 opening. Here in Florida, they finally opened our gyms, but in North Carolina and some other states, they're still doing phase 1 in terms of opening. So gyms and a lot of those places are not open. this guy posted a video, and I wish I had the clip, and it's a long video, but I watched it in its entirety, and it showed the frustration that people have with this lockdown and in terms of what it's doing to business. He said his brick and mortar businesses, because he had online businesses too, his brick and mortar businesses were seeing a 50% reduction in revenue. And, he he opened his gym because he got ticked off at it, and, he needed to work out, and people needed to work out. And then the cops raided him and all this stuff. And the video is pretty complex. You could find it online, I'm sure, because it's super viral. But it talks a lot about that. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on lately about, protests and businesses opening. And there's even more layoffs. We're starting to hear now that we're having advanced layoffs right now because, especially in the logistics sector and travel, because we don't have an end game. There's no end game in sight right now for this market. A lot of people are like, okay, if volumes are increasing, revenue is increasing, but unfortunately it's not enough. So I know a lot of big brokers right now are actually sitting around trying to figure out how they can stay open. And carriers are doing the same thing. There's bankruptcies. Today, I was doing a little bit of research, and for anyone that doesn't know the process for when you're going to do a layoff, if you're laying off, I believe it's 50 people or more, or 50 or 40% or more of your office, you have to file warn notices as long as it meets a certain level, a certain amount of people that are laid off. I don't know the exact rules and regulations with it, but every state has public notices of warn notices, so of companies that are laying off. Today, I decided I was verifying something that I saw in a different article, some other media outlet, and I was, I fact check everything. So I was fact checking something, and I ended up going into the warn notices for the state of Florida. And the state of Florida I remember, because I usually do it every day for a couple of key target states. That way I could tell what companies are announcing layoffs, because you're required to file that notice before you lay people off, typically. So I've been going for a long time to check. Florida had so many layoffs, and then I checked Ohio too, and Ohio had so many layoffs. And we're talking, we know this already. The unemployment numbers are out. An additional 2.4 million people have had filed for unemployment claims this week or last week, bringing the total. I think it's 38.6 million people have filed for unemployment. It's absolutely insane. And it's continuing on, because a lot of these businesses that kept their employees employed are now realizing, hey, we're not going to open, and they're having to go lean. That's what a lot of these big 3PLs and brokers are making tough decisions right now to say, hey, listen, do we have enough time to actually stay open or and keep up our current staffing, even if they weathered through the storm of having drastically low volumes and drastically low rates and all that? A lot of companies right now are sitting and going, oh shit, what do we do? And so we know a lot. I know Helen, one of my writers, is working on an article about Enterprise. Enterprise has laid off at least 2,200 people, since the beginning of this thing, and they just keep coming. The layoffs keep coming, and now I'm starting to get a lot of messages about big 3PLs, a couple of carriers that are planning on making some big cuts. Bigger cuts than what we've seen in the past. And we've seen some big cuts. Uber laid off how many? 6,700 people in the past month. Lyft has laid off a crap ton of people as well. And Lyft is a rideshare. But Uber, a lot of those people that were cut, or a percentage of those people that were cut, worked in the freight departments. It's really weird that we hear announcements that they're having massive layoffs. I get confirmation from a lot of people that worked on the carrier side as carrier sales reps, and they were laid off. And then the next day, the Bill Diger, I don't know how you say his name, but he got on a FreightWave show and talked about how they're planning all this growth and all this stuff. And I'm not saying that they're not going to. They have a platform, but I think it's going to be a really telling sign on what happens in this industry going forward, because there's going to be a lot of just weird stuff. The volumes even though volumes are increasing, rates are still pretty slow. I looked at the rates the other day. They're still pretty slow or pretty low. And it's nerve wracking for me, for someone that watches this stuff. And yeah, I don't know. Those are some of the questions I want to ask Tim, because he can understand this. I want to ask him when he specifically thinks that, rates are going to come up and volume is going to increase, because he's a data guy. So he could see all that. He understands that stuff a lot more than me. I can only base my assumptions on what's going to happen with the market based on my experience, but it's operational knowledge and not exactly like data science knowledge. He can understand all that stuff, and a lot of people can't. I just can't. I get bored very quickly, but it's really crazy. Uber laid off were Office and Freight, none on the Rider platform. Well, Rider platform can't be laid off because they're independent contractors, Douglas. So Uber can't lay off rideshare contractors because they're contractors. They don't just they wouldn't file. They don't have any benefits for now, but. I don't know. It's really interesting when you look at everything and you're like, damn, what is going on? What's going to happen with this? So I don't know about these DC protests and all that stuff. It looks like DC that these guys are getting ready to pull out today if they already haven't. Frankly, I don't care. I'm not watching it that much anymore. And I didn't ever since I don't know, what was it? Tuesday night was the last day I really, really talked about it. I did write an article about them having the meeting yesterday, found out some other stuff. There's a lot of divisiveness that's going on the ground there, but I don't want to touch on it, dude. I heard yesterday police are called and this and that, and there's all sorts of Jerry Springer type crap going on the field there. So I hope they get out before, before whatever platform they have is just decimated by arguing. There's a lot of divisiveness on the ground between the people that went in and whether or not they think it was a good representation and all this stuff. Old Young asked, when does the old call-in show return? Well, the main call-in shows I'm doing are the Freight and Whiskey, which are, as of right now, Tuesday night at 6:00. And then maybe Friday show. Tomorrow we do have a guest, and the guest is coming on, and he's going to talk about, he wrote a book. I think it's an Industry of Liars or something. I got to look it up, but he wrote a book about the broker issues, and he was threatened to be sued and all this stuff. I didn't read this. I didn't read the book. It's a small book that's available on Amazon. It's got horrible reviews, and most of the people that left the reviews were freight brokers. You could tell, and they said, "Hey, this isn't true." It's a typical thing a freight broker says when someone's outing him. But I figured it would be kind of cool to have him on. He has a bunch of experience in the industry. And he wrote a tell-all book on the industry. So he's going to be on tomorrow at 2:30, and we'll see where that goes. But all right, Fran said, nasty guy advocating to protest now. He's abandoning them. Whatever. I don't know what you're talking about, bud. That's getting annoying. So Shane asked a question. He said, I've been watching you for a week or so. Good points, but allow me to throw this. You got brokers out here keeping X percentage, and then depending on exactly what agreement is set, but trucking companies are just as bad, if not worse. These trucking companies are all the same. You keep starving. You don't care if you take more than the rest. So I don't get it. The thing is, people have to go out and do their jobs. If you're a carrier, I'm so tired of talking about it. People need to go out and do their jobs. If you're a carrier, you have a duty to make sure that you're saving enough money, or you're making enough money on the run that you take. And as a broker, you have a duty to make sure that you're providing enough money for the carriers to not go under. So, as a broker selling $1 a mile loads, it doesn't matter if that's market or not. It's a scumbag thing to do, in my opinion. I made a conscious choice not to do it, and now I may not. We want to talk about companies that have 50% reduction in revenue. I had 100% reduction in revenue in April for my freight brokerage. We didn't move any loads at all. No loads were invoiced. So I really, it's just sad. The industry is messed up right now. It's messed up. Josh Lumpson said, look up any trade show and see the exhibitor list. Tons of leads to call. Yeah. I mean, everyone can go out and get their own customers. It doesn't matter. Even if you're a one truck owner operator and you're running, there's a guy that watches my show all the time that is not pulling this cheap crap out here. So what he's doing right now is he's going around and he's in his car and he's going and staying in hotels and he's driving around and he's he's going and making sales leads, and he's getting direct shippers. He's literally doing it now. He just texted me right before the show, and he said he just landed a new direct shipper, and he's just going around and getting them himself. Why? Because he wasn't going to haul the cheap freight, and he's certainly not going to sit around. So people just have to do that and actually get out there and work, man. People have to work and go out and get business. If you're a freight broker and you have no business, go out there and draw up new business. That's it. Josh Lumsden said, go on LinkedIn and search for a company, then search people, type in transportation or logistics, and voila. I know there's so many different ways. You can use the Apollo IO thing that I talked about before, which is pretty rad. You can use that to source and prospect clients. Hell, type in shipper list in Google, and you could find shipper lists. Old Young said, I got a directory for 200 with 300 million businesses I plan on calling this week. Yeah, I mean, people just have to go out there and beat up the phones. If you're a freight broker, then you have to, I had a meeting yesterday with a consulting client, and he's like, I need to figure out how to prospect. I come from the carrier side. I don't know how to prospect and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you come from the carrier side and you have multiple trucks. Do you have dedicated freight? No, he doesn't. It's all spot market freight, and his trucks are sitting. Why? Because he doesn't have any dedicated freight. It's weird. So I guess because I just said that, I might as well just give my announcement now, even before it's done. So I've been doing trainings and all this stuff for a long time. And I have a bunch of videos and a bunch of content, a wealth of resources and all this stuff. So I'm actually good. There's going to be a learning section on my website. It's not up yet because I forgot to save it. And when I refreshed my page, it deleted everything I worked on. But there's going to be a learning section that's going to be on my website up at the top, either in resources or by the resources tab. At any rate, that's going to have all the videos that I've ever made about freight broker training. That's going to have load board training. It's going to have a centralized location for all the Ascend videos that are on there, a bunch of videos about from DAT that are on there. There's going to be a huge amount, plus a shipper list. And I'll just keep adding all the different resources where people can go and going to find it. And then there's so I'm doing a couple of things different. One, because I need to make sure that I can keep doing this stuff. So that's one of the things that I'm doing. And that access will be, I don't know. I'm either going to do like $19 a month or 20 or 30. I haven't decided yet. And then another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting out more in-depth reporting on certain things, kind of like what all the big news stations and all the news websites do, where you have your basic content, the basic breaking news and all that. And then they have more in-depth reporting and things like that. So I'm going to have that as well. And I think I'm going to call that, I don't know. That'll probably be like $1 a month or something, just because I got to keep drawing up money. So I'm able to do all this stuff that I like to do. And now, again, I didn't make any money on the broker side of things. And so now I'm a little panicking because, like I said, I'm good for a while, but it's creeping up on me just as much as it's creeping up on everybody else. So my website, for anyone who doesn't know, is freightbrokerlive.com. Or you can also go to capacitymag.com and it'll link over to the site, because that's eventually what I'm switching it over to. But there'll be a learning tab. It's not on there yet. And so to access the pages and the shipper lists and all that crap, in the shipper lists are not going to be like my personal shippers. Those are going to just be lists that I find online. Because the thing is, I'm a prospecting guy. I like prospecting like crazy. I find it fun. So if I see something that's interesting online, I'll put it in there. And people will have access to that stuff. And it allows me to continue to be able to produce all this video and the content and all that stuff that I do every day. So yeah, that should be up. Maybe I'll have it up tomorrow, or I'll have it up, I don't know, at some point. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's just, paid training. Well, it costs money to do this stuff. So that's and I don't want to sell out too much and go for all the corporate advertising and all that. So that's one of the things I'm going to do. It's going to, like I said, it'll have load board training. It'll have all the freight broker training videos I've had. It'll have more content. Maybe if a lot of people do it, then I'll do a special live video for those people. I don't know, but it'll be on there, and the instructions to be on there or the instructions to sign up and do all that will be on there as well. Because I think it's important. So many, how many emails a day I get from people from making these videos where people are like, hey, I would love to learn how to do this industry. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't have time. but I have yesterday someone asked, hey, you used to do all these trainings. Do you have those videos? And I'm like, I don't know where they are. And then I found them and I'm like, holy crap. I have like 9 hours of video made. Why don't I just put this stuff out there? I've got the whole video about running a trucking company. That's 7 hours long. I could just put that up there and then people have access to it. And then it allows me to continue to do everything I do in the news and without having to go to some of these big advertisers and sell my soul, because I don't want to do that. I want to be able to keep reporting the way I am now. That's the best part about who I have advertising now with DAT, Ascend, OTR, all these companies. They're we're all under the understanding that I just do whatever I want. You know what I mean? It's if they mess up, I report on it. You know what I mean? So I get to be real and transparent and stuff like that. So I really like that. But so that'll be up this weekend. For news, man, I don't know. I think I got a little sad. Maybe that's the right word. When I was looking at all the unemployment claims and the WARN notices, I was looking in Ohio, I looked in Tennessee, I looked in Florida. Florida had so many. And then in Florida, you can arrange just by the industry. And so I'm looking at all the different transportation and airlines. Airlines have laid off a ton of people. I don't understand the political financial side of this and how we're going to get out and how, they're giving all the bailout money and all that stuff to every other industry except trucking, because trucking we don't have anyone that actually lobbies for anything that makes any damn sense. But they're doing all these bailouts and subsidies and the airlines are getting it. And, the airlines were part of a $50 billion bailout and then they're still not refunding their people. The way we're handling this as a country, and especially industry wide, is kind of scary. I mean, look at what happened. These guys went to DC. They protested. What did they protest? They protested cheap freight, and they protested the price gouging. I saw someone in the comments said, why is it that? How did this even start? This whole freight broker price gouging transparency BS that's going on. Well, it started, and it's been going on since forever. Since I think a year after I was born was the first like print stuff where it was going back and forth in 85. But it's a mess, and people are out there. And I think a lot of it has to do with education, basic supply and demand economics. You have to understand, are there people that are price gouging and all that stuff? Yep. But it just doesn't make any sense. I just don't get it. Douglas Hammond is a broker, clearly. He said, Steve, have a good day. Got to pee on a fire. Carrier's butt hurt for not getting unloaded fast enough. Yeah. We can't make everyone happy in this industry, and that's what we're all finding out. Right now, we can't appease everybody, and it's a little bit sad. We can't make everybody happy, and it's rough. The guys that are in DC, they went in. I mean, it started off, I would say it started off as, a 25%, advocating for the future of trucking and hours of service reform and increased training and things like that. And 75% of it was anti-broker, price gouging complaints, low rates. I mean, a lot of these people firmly believe the reason why rates are low is because they're gouging rates. They firmly believe that, which is, it's to me, it's mind blowing. To me, because I use common sense when I think. There's no other way I can't soften that blow there. There is no way for me to say it nice. But a lot of people are steadfast in every single thing. Like, for example, I'm a good broker. If I go out and I post a load at market rate right now, I would get hammered. People would be like, oh, you're just like everyone else. You're probably making $3 a mile on the load. But unfortunately, people don't understand supply and demand. And all these guys that waited in DC and waited and had all these advocates that were there and supporting them, and they came and went. So one day it's this group, one day it's the next group, one day it's this group. And then instead we have, I don't know either of them personally. We have an ELD provider that goes in and he's complaining about hours of service, or he's complaining about low rates and freight broker transparency. And then another group that's been very vocal in hours of service reform. They go in together, which doesn't really make any sense to me. And they focus, from what I saw in the video, they focus purely on the broker transparency and the fact that the DOJ has opened an investigation. So I don't know. I'm just kind of lost, and I know a lot of people on the ground there, and I got a lot of calls after I made the video yesterday. a lot of people, they feel the same way. You know what I mean? They feel obligated to support these guys because they're out there standing up for the rights of truckers. But then at the same time, they're just arguing about stuff that is really, nobody's actually controlling, and we won't see it until, maybe July when the Q2 earnings finally come out. We're not really going to see it. And even then there's going to be some sort of excuses. Oh, they're hiding funds and all that. Someone asked what I think about the DOJ investigation. I think the DOJ investigation was put into place simply to, if it actually even is, because it's the only one who's actually confirmed are these guys in the video and then a patch news reporter. Those are the only people. So I don't even know, man. Even if it is real, the only thing they're going to do is they're going to look and they're going to talk to the TIA. They're going to talk to some of the big brokers. They're going to bring up all the data that is readily accessible. We learned that on Tuesday when Ken was on the show. They have historical data. They have proof that these were the market rates during these lanes, and they are going to pay, and they're going to be able to prove that in the middle of April, rates were $1 a mile. That was the average for that lane for that week. And that's what carriers were accepting loads for. Therefore, the complaint is thrown out the window. What it really did is they said, okay, we opened a DOJ investigation. You guys know that. We confirmed it. Good. Now get out of the White House. Move your trucks, go home, end the protest is what they said. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me why people, and maybe they did, I don't know, but I haven't heard that they asked for any sort of financial backing. So if these guys were as dire straits as they said they were going into DC, I'm very curious as to what's going to happen to them in the next, month, because rates aren't going to come up dramatically by then. Luis Carlos Mendoza said, yes, rates are low due to COVID, but you can't deny brokers were taking advantage before all this. Don't try to confuse that with the current situation. Well, again, you have to understand supply and demand. You have to understand markets. Even though everyone, ATA and all these big guys say we have a driver shortage, we don't. We have an overcapacity. We did in 2019 too. I'm a freight broker. So if I post out a load and I get 15 million calls on it and I'm able to move freight for cheaper, guess what that means? We have too many trucks in the area. That's called an overcapacity, which is one of the things that drives freight down. A lot of people just don't understand that. So 2019 was rough because in 2018, we added all this capacity. And 2021 will probably be like 2018 or better. But how many people are going to be in place and how many people are going to be able to exist until this is all done? I really don't know. I don't know. Fran said this is very confusing. Dude, whatever. You're saying something about government and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't make any sense, man. H. Davis said, so what's up with the Ryder lawsuit? Seen an article, but didn't have a chance to read it. So Ryder is getting sued. There's a class action lawsuit against Ryder for price fixing, securities fraud, essentially. So they were giving a higher value to their assets. And then when it's very, you guys got to read the article. They were giving a much higher value to the assets in terms of what they were actually worth. And then when they were selling them at a much, a very low depreciated value, which inflated inflated the stock price of the assets until they sold it. So the stock was at $52 and change. And then right now, I think on the article, when I put it, it was at like $30. So so a lot of people are going out and they're suing. There's class action lawsuits and there's at least one. I saw a couple others, but they'll probably join together. But a lot of the investors are pretty ticked off because they were inflating their rates and giving really high residual income rate or residual amounts for what all these trucks were worth through their leasing and rental programs. And then when they were selling them, they weren't able to account for such a high number because they were selling them at such a loss. So it's pretty complex. But we have Tim calling in now. So let's put him on the air and we'll just talk about the industry and the market. What's up, Tim? You're on the air.
Hello, Mr. Oatley. How are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
I can't complain. I've just been stuck in the house here for, I think this is the 6th week, but we're slowly getting back to normality starting on Monday. We're going to go back into our offices and do a bit of a musical chairs event, as we, have some people come in one day and other people on another day.
Yeah.
So kind of get back to normal.
Yeah. So what do you, and just to put it out, you guys released a whole bunch of functionality today, and we'll talk about that in a second. But because you're an economist, you have a lot of knowledge in that field. What do you think about the current situation in terms of price gouging and rates? And when do you think we're going to rebound? This is a super loaded question, but I've been waiting to ask you all day. So.
Yeah, well, so I've been listening to you, for the last 30 minutes or so, and you have to remember sometimes that a person's economic situation, is very microscopic. What they feel the economy is very personal to them. So, we can talk about, the stock market going up or commodity prices going up or whatever it is, but the economy to most people out there is very personal. So if you've got 2 or 3 customers and, you're, quite happily moving, produce or foods, then, maybe you haven't taken a hit. You don't really think there's any problem. But if you're in North Carolina near High Point where they make, furniture and, all of a sudden nobody's shipping furniture because the plants have closed or because people aren't buying new furniture, then the economy to you completely sucks.
Right.
So I think it's a very personal thing. On a broader scale, though, I think that we're probably, only 2 innings into maybe a 9 or 10 inning game. There's close to, if not over 40 million people, depending on which numbers you believe, are unemployed. And, those people right now are getting by through having unemployment benefits, maybe some savings. But, the real impact of that hasn't been seen. The question is how many people will go back to work? How many people won't? How many businesses that they used to work at will be open or closed? So there's so many things that are up in the air that I think that the best thing that everybody can do is, look close to home, say, how can I cut costs? How can I squirrel away my money and, be prepared for maybe something bad that lies ahead? I said to somebody the other day, if you're in Africa and you're a wildebeest and you're crossing a crocodile infested river, you probably don't want to be, the last few that are crossing the river because the crocodiles have been watching everything before that and they'll probably take you down. So you need to, either act first or act certainly appropriately, but, don't be the last to act because then it'll be too late.
For sure. And that kind of, it's like I said yesterday in my show, I think right now is the perfect time for the companies that are able to sustain, that have enough money saved or have the direct freight to look at how they're going to come out of what I'm like coining the coronavirus hole. I mean, because that's what we're in right now. A lot of people say it's a cliff and we're at the base of the cliff, but then we got to start climbing up. So I'm curious or I'm not curious. I think a lot of people are going to use the time to come out of the coronavirus pandemic and use technology to leverage that rapid, takeoff, I guess, if you'd say. So, I mean, you guys are a technology provider, clearly. What do you, I mean, obviously you want the best, why should companies that are relying on lesser tech or lesser functionality or even Excel spreadsheets, because believe it or not, they're still brokers and very big brokers. I talked to one the other day. He does $9 million a year, does not use a TMS. He uses Excel because he's been doing it for 20 years. But what do you think that the way of the future is with all the DFM marketplaces and all that? And do you think companies need to shift to that kind of technology?
Yeah, but maybe over time. I had a very fascinating conversation with a guy called Jason Miller, who is a professor at Michigan State University. Over the last 24 hours, he and I have been going back and forth, looking at, data, data trends, what is the right data? Everybody's saying that they have the best data. So I was talking to him and, it struck me, he said, he comes from a small town where, you go to the local grocery store, and in that local grocery store that has been serving that, same place for 50 years, third generation, nothing's barcoded. You take a can of beans up to the desk and the guy, instinctively knows how much it costs, or, there might be one of those, labels stuck to the bottom of it that's with those little manual guns. So I think that technology works in some situations. And in other situations, you might not need technology. If you've got one customer in some town that's making, I don't know, I'm just looking around, my room here, making plant pots. And they do 3 or 4 loads of plant pots a week that go to the big box stores. Maybe you don't need technology. You've known this plant pot maker for 30 years, and he's grown up with your family. You went to the same high school together. So in those cases, I think technology is going to be slow to kind of creep into those worlds. But if you want to do business with Kroger, then technology is a must. The first thing Kroger is going to say, or Home Depot or Pepsi Cola, they're going to say, well, can you, receive the load tenders by EDI? You can't say, well, what does EDI mean? That, they're talking about electronic load tenders.
Right.
So I think that it depends who you do business with. And what you really want is, if you are going to use technology and move away from spreadsheets, use technology that'll bridge that gap, between kind of today's paper messy world where, spreadsheets and paper are involved, but that when you do get a new account called, say, Pepsi Cola or Kroger, and they want to do business electronically, you can say, yes, we can accept those tenders electronically. And, the next day you're getting the load tenders from Kroger. So I think that you've got to try to use technology where it's needed and at your own pace. However, having said that, even the plant pot guy I just mentioned, in 20 years, he's going to be somehow sending electronic load tenders, from his own system. And so unless you can, receive those tenders electronically, you might lose the plant pot guy.
Right. Yeah, it's weird because I personally think that everybody needs to adapt to what's going on. We have so many digital brokers and everything, and utilizing software, even if it's only to give the impression that you're tech enabled, is been like a talking point of mine for a while. And then I started working with Ascend, and I've been familiar with Ascend for a long time, but I started working with Ascend and realized that your software kind of already does a lot of the things that I've been telling other people that they need to do. And you just step that up a game. So now we're going to the sales portion of the call, but you just stepped up that for quite a ways by integrating both UPS Capital and Forkite's technology right into your technology. And I do have a question from one of the viewers. He's asking how often do your prices, your monthly or your seat user costs increase?
So we've been around for 5 years. Ascend TMS has been around for 5 years. The company's been around since 2002. In that 5 years since Ascend was born, we've had 2 price increases. The price increases were reflective of all the additional stuff we had in it.
Right.
We've got a lot more inside Ascend today than we used to 5 years ago. So, we don't do price increases on a kind of regular basis. What we do is we say, okay, we've added 20 more things, and those things are being used, so there's some value to that. So we increase our prices accordingly. What's interesting, and this is true, in the last 2 price increases we've done, we didn't lose one single customer. We have 27,000 companies use Ascend TMS every single day. We've got paying customers in over 20 countries. And when we've done price increases in those 2 times, we didn't lose one customer. And in fact, we actually grew in size, because I think what happens is as we tell more people about our additional features, more people come to us. But, this isn't meant to be a commercial for Ascend at all. There are many other technologies that are not Ascend that people can, leverage. I mean, I'll give you one good example. If you're, a pure owner operator, you can use, some of the apps like DAT puts out, or Truckstop, or Convoy. There's other technologies that might fit you better than Ascend. Ascend isn't a fit for everybody. While we do have options for, carriers, brokers, shippers, and if you combine, assets with brokerage or brokerage with assets, et cetera, we work for that as well.
Right.
But we just try to tell people, use technology where it makes sense, where the cost is right. And in some cases, that might be DAT, it might be Convoy. And we encourage that. There's a lot of good technologies out there, not just ours, but just be aware also that there's a new group of drivers and a new group of dispatchers coming through the ranks that, they grew up with cell phones in their hands, with smartphones. Right. They grew up with laptops, and iPads. So there's like an expectation, these kids that are, finishing high school and college today, when they go to work and they see all this paper, they're like, why are you doing it that way?
Right.
Because they grew up with technology. So as those people get more experience and they take over the trucking company they work at or the brokerage they work at, they're going to basically do away with the old processes, and they're going to bring this new sunrise, if you will, of technology into that organization.
Right. Yeah, it's that's we're already seeing that. I mean, I've consulted with a bunch of different companies, and they're looking for that change now, just because they have, you can't go off of the old way people deal with it. With this four kites technology and the ads, I haven't really had time to play with it too much. I did write the article, but I'm extremely interested in what can that do, and having those. Well, I guess explain why that's beneficial to, say a small broker, small fleet, to have that kind of data visibility.
Yeah, well, so a lot of our customers were, basically asking us, for data, more data and data insights inside Ascend. So what they didn't want is, when we actually asked them what they were looking for, they didn't want lots of raw data. But these aren't data scientists. These are people that are running a business. What they wanted to know is, for example, if my truck's in one state and I need to, leave that state tomorrow morning, what are my 3, 4, 5 best options, to go to other states where I can get a decent rate going into that other state, but I can also be pretty sure that I can get out of that state when I get there. Right. So getting $4 a mile to go to the middle of Nebraska sounds great while you're driving to Nebraska, until you realize you've got to drive 600 miles out to get the next load that'll pay you, $1 a mile. So the bottom line is technology should be presented in a way, data should be presented in a way, I should say, that allows the user to get actionable information. So, another interesting thing when we got with Fourkites is, we've got all this dwell time data, and we're trying to work with them to get this down to the actual pickup and delivery address location. So, for example, if you're going to a distribution center to do a delivery, and you know that the average dwell time or wait time when you get there is going to be 6 hours and 9 minutes, you might want to think twice about going there. Right. But if there's a place that's 40 miles away where the average dwell time is 36 minutes, then maybe that's a better place to go, even if you're going to get a few cents less per mile on the way out. So we're trying to provide this data free to everybody. So what we made a conscious decision here, Steve, to give this not only to the paid premium users of Ascend, but also the basic users. If you're a basic free user of Ascend, you still get all this data. And we're going to keep adding to this over time, so that at the end of the day, you'll have every data point that you can really think of, and it won't cost you any money, so that you can do business better, faster, and more efficiently.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting software feature. It's something that when you told me about it, when you told me about it a couple of days ago, I was very interested, because it rivals some of the bigger guys that are out there that charge a lot of money for that information, and to be able to include it for free, especially in a time like this where, I mean, let's face it, some carriers and some brokers just really need the chance to get out of this hole. And so by offering functionality without an additional price tag, I think is pretty cool. And that's something that I've noticed you guys do. It's just one price. You don't have modules. A lot of other
I was talking to Ben Gordon with BG Strategic Advisors. They're basically a private equity and VC firm. I've known Ben for a long time. And I said to Ben just this morning that, in 1 or 2 years, data is going to be free everywhere. Nobody's going to be charging for the data. There are so many people out there now, like Fourkites, us, the Truckins of the world, the Convoys, that have aggregated this massive amount of data to be able to, it's anonymized, of course, but to be able to say, hey, there's a 6 hour and 9 minute wait time here, and there's a 43-minute wait time here. So we've got all of this information to be able to present. And I think that in 1 or 2 years, I said to Ben, data will be free, not just through Ascend, but everywhere. It'll just be a way to provide information to somebody's prospective customers, so that at the end of the day, they can sell them a product or service that adds value and they can make some money at. But the data itself, I think, will be provided for free. And I don't think that anybody will be able to get away with just being a data provider in the next year or two. It'll just be a given. It just won't be in our TMS. It'll be in other TMSs. Right. Another ERP system, and that's continuously, that's how continuous improvement works. And that's how a capitalist economy works, where, it's game theory. One person steps up the game, and then everybody else has to react and get better and more efficient. And I think that's what you're seeing in the marketplace right now. And it's being, to some degree, somewhat accelerated because of this whole COVID-19 accelerant that's made the economy stumble and struggle a little bit.
Right. No, I agree. Like I said, I think it really pushed up the time frame that I had for the majority of companies needing to be tech enabled in some regard. And then my last question for you, it's one that I've asked every single person this week, and nobody's really given me their opinion. When do you think, just because you pay attention to data and you read a lot and all that stuff, when do you think we will come out of this, where rates will become positive, load volumes will be positive? Just a unofficial guess.
Yeah, so if you're gonna, say this on a macro view, so obviously, if you were moving, a personal protective equipment, for medical supplies over the last 2 months, you're loving it, right? You've made lots of money. But I think on a macro view, we're at least a year to 2 years away, and I truly mean that. People forget, and you probably remember, but in 2018. Capacity was very, very difficult to find. So shippers and brokers were paying really high rates in 2018, 2017 even. And so basically the pendulum was in the hands of the carrier. They were the ones that could, say, look, I don't want, your stupid, $2.25 a mile. I want $3.50 a mile. And people were having to pay that. So right now the pendulum, however, has gone the opposite way. There's been so because the rates were so great in 2017 and 18, lots and lots of people came into the marketplace. They restarted their trucks. They left their construction jobs. They might have got more trailers and more leased equipment on. And so what happened is all this extra capacity came into the marketplace, which drove the prices down because there's only so many loads available on any given day. Right. Then all of a sudden, COVID-19 hit. All the load volume, got driven down, and it did. On a macro view, loads overall went down. No matter what some of these data providers tell you, that might be, talking about electronic tenders just with the largest shippers and the largest carriers. The typical participant in this market is a small, less than 100 trucks. 92% of the market less than 20 trucks. So because all those people came into the market, it drove the rates really, really low. COVID-19 also came. It basically poured gasoline onto the fire. So now you've got all these people sitting in trucks with no loads. So the only way that this works is those people have to get out of their trucks, park their trucks, either default or just move into a different line of work, go into construction or whatever it is. And then as that capacity falls, and it meets the needs of the existing load volume that is out there, then rates will start to rise again. But that we're a year to 2 years away from that happening, I believe. And I watch the numbers carefully every single day. I think that people like Jason Miller at Michigan State University are doing a great job of amalgamating different sources of data. And I'm going to continue to follow him because I'm interested to know when we are going to come out of this. And I guess I'll end by just saying the following, Steve, is that if you've got 10 trucks today and things aren't going so well, it's okay to only have 5 trucks and still be in business a year from now. Or if you're a broker doing $6 million a year in sales and you're struggling and you're losing money, it's okay to downsize and to ride the storm through and only do $2 or $3 million per year in revenue with a smaller team by leveraging technology. Because I think at the end of the day, we all want to just still exist when this storm passes.
No, that's true. I mean, a lot of people are going to be forced, even the guys that don't want to make don't want to downsize. I mean, I'm hearing about it now. Some companies are going to be forced to do that. Well, thank you for coming on our show today. So how can people sign up? It's right on the website, or it's right on this video, but how can people sign up for Ascend?
Just go to thefreetms.com, thefreetms.com. You can sign up in about 13 seconds. We've timed it. Everybody that signs up, will give them a free 26,000 shipper directory with phone numbers, credit scores that they can get on the phone and try to generate sales. I always joke, and I think I joked with you last time, that The shipper directory alone doesn't all of a sudden, mean you get sales. You've actually got to call these people and have a sales pitch, to try to get some of their business. But, if you do enough hard work, you use a shipper directory that we provide with you and the technology. And the first 30 days is completely free. You get every bell and whistle we have for 30 days for free. And if you don't like it, just move on to something else. But it's thefreetms.com.
Very cool. Well, thanks for joining us, and I will talk to you again. I talk to you quite a few times a week, so I'm sure we're going to talk again soon. So thank you for coming on the show.
My friend.
See ya.
Thanks, buddy. Take care now. Bye-bye.
So yeah, I mean, their software, and I don't say it just because they're an advertiser. I rep their software even before they became one. It literally has every single functionality and feature that you can need. You know what I mean? As whether you're a broker or carrier, because it still does carrier driver payables and all that stuff, invoicing, and I believe it integrates with QuickBooks and a bunch of other stuff. And they just, I mean, I've been working with them now for 2 months, and they have new integrations. It seems like every week. So that's something, people that are kind of. Here's the thing. Freight volumes are low for everybody, not just carriers right now. So if there is a way for you guys to get to a point where you can strategically do well when you come out of this hole, like I said, or you climb out using technology and rebranding or whatever you got to do so you get to that point, use it. And I firmly believe that Ascend, whether or not they were an advertiser or not, I firmly believe that they are the best software out there for the bang for the buck. And to be honest, they may, especially with the new data that they just put in with the four kites and even the UPS Capital integrations, all those different integrations, probably just put them up as one of the, if not the best, one of the best that I've worked with in the past. I wish the company I was an agent for used it, because there's a lot of that tech that I'd like. But I will answer questions here for the last 8 minutes of the show. I'm just going to play the Ascend commercial again and get some water. I'll be right back.
Aren't you tired of your outdated server installed TMS? Are you stuck with a software that looks like it was developed when the Matrix movie was popular? Well, Ascend TMS is here to bring you to the actual future of TMS solutions. You can literally get started in less than 15 seconds. Ascend TMS is one of the only true cloud-based TMS softwares on the market. Where other softwares could take weeks or even months to implement, Ascend TMS just takes a few moments. See, we actually timed it. And what about features? I think we have you covered there. Here at Ascend TMS, we're so confident you'll make your business more efficient and profitable in your first 30 days, we give it to you for free. So what are you waiting for? Sign up today at thefreetms.com.
This down. All right. So let's go through some of these questions and see what's up. George said he's signing up today. Very good deal. It's pretty awesome. Mr. Lampshade on YouTube said transparency will only kill rates, but it will be permanent. Kind of agree. Kind of agree. Clarence said the price of maintenance, fuel, tire insurance, the price of new and used trucks don't go down. There's nothing else to cut, Steve. And then I don't know what there is things to cut unless you're a solo owner operator. And then, yeah, you're fixed at what you can do. But I think he was talking about more of the fleets and the larger companies that do have. I mean, I already know. I just haven't put out the article yet, but there's some big brokers that are making cuts, and they're making cuts in advance of what's going to happen, because they also do not see. They think that this recovery is going to take quite a bit of time, and so they are planning now to make cuts, and it's going to sacrifice the people, but they're trying to make sure that they're able to stay open, because it doesn't do any good if they try to fire on all cylinders for another 2 or 3 months and then realize they're done when freight volumes do not increase enough so that there's profit there. So that's what he's meaning by making cuts. It's the same thing everyone did when this first hit. Everyone in America right now is tightening up their belt and going through their household income and paying attention to revenue. Everybody has to do it. And that's something that as a business owner, everybody has to, you have to figure out how much you need and what you can cut and whether or not it's even if it makes sense to be on the road. You know what I mean? And that's a decision that a lot of people are faced with. I talk to them every day. There's people that are literally like, oh, I have to take these loads, even though they don't pay much. And because I have there's one guy, he's like, I got $900 a week for a truck payment. I'm like, you got to figure out a way to get out of that. Because if you're running negative, you're not going to make any. It doesn't. I don't understand it, but some people just feel like they're in between a rock and a hard place. So they have nowhere to go. So they just have to go out and they have to haul the cheaper stuff. And brokers too. There are some brokers out there that have nothing but good intentions, that agree with every single thing that I say in terms of, they're fine with transparency there, but they've increased their profit margins. Why? Because they have employees and they're trying to keep their employees, even though the volumes are down, they're trying to keep their employees employed. So they have jobs and they're able to provide for their lives. Because think about it. If it's not just one person, it's the entire family and all the people that support those people. So a lot of people really have to, the times of making the tough decisions doesn't seem like it's anywhere closer to being over, unfortunately. And I think that's what kind of got me this morning when I was reading about some other, massive layoffs and all that stuff. I ended up just looking at it and then just looking at all the companies, and the unemployment number is so crazy. And it's just crazy. George Diaz, the $900 a week. And that's not a fake number. That's real, And then I talked to another guy who says he pays $2,900 a month for his truck. That's outrageous. And it's not even a new truck. It was like a 2015 or something like that. It's people have to use their head before they get into these kind of contracts and these deals. Because otherwise look what happens when the markets tank. Markets always tank. They run good for a little bit and they come down. I was thinking that they were going to come up. I know myself and not a lot of other brokers. Mike Timmy said, good. I hope all these guys go out of business, brokers. But I think you're a broker, aren't you? Troll. George Diaz said he pays $600 a month for his truck payment. Well, that's good. Some do, some don't. I knew a bunch of hotshot guys too that were, I don't know where they were getting their trucks from, but they were paying a lot for hotshot rigs, like dualies, and they were paying very big payments, but they also had trucks that had every bell and whistle you could possibly imagine. You could go out and buy a semi for it. But, people just need to be practical. You know what I mean? I could have went out and bought a very nice car. Instead, I bought a new car, but it was not that, it wasn't loaded up with all that stuff. Mike Timmy said, come on, he's not a troll. He joined. Yeah, I know, but you're a broker and you're making on the broker statements. It's funny. I know. I get it. The industry is crazy right now. Everybody's at people need to work together. If we want to affect change in the industry, we got to do it together without the divisiveness between carriers and brokers. Because unfortunately, carriers and brokers and everyone else that's involved in this industry have a really, really hard time coming out of this. This is not going to end tomorrow. It's not going to end next week. It's not going to end next month. Every industry stakeholder is going to have a hard time. It doesn't matter whether it's insurance or factoring companies, or everybody's going to see a reduction in freight volume, or everyone's going to see a reduction in unless you sell software. See, maybe that's a good point. Because if you're in a software and a technology like that, which is super cheap anyway, but is full of functionality like the Ascend software, then maybe you're going to do well. Because a lot of, like I say, if I owned a broker right now and I was in, for example, say I didn't own an agency and I owned a full brokerage myself, I would be rebranding the whole thing. I would come out of this thing as a digital tech enabled, load board having freight broker, because I think that's the way everyone has to go. So if I was in control of a broker, or I owned my own, I would be investing in technology, investing in the DFM technology, because I think that's the way it needs to go in the future. And that's what I would be doing. If I was a carrier, I'd be looking at ways to trim my costs, whether it's to renegotiate finance or any financial contracts or whatever. There's a lot of things that you can do, whether, try to go get loans to refinance your trucks, whatever the case is. People have to do shit to actually affect some change. That's what they have to do. George Diaz, the problem is, you said it yourself numerous times, no one wants to listen. That's very true. Nobody wants to listen. Clarence said it doesn't matter whether you have a $2K truck or a $20,000 truck or a $200,000 truck. The cost of operating is still the same. No, it's not. And that's a very, very clear point that some people are so disconnected with the industry. It's nuts. Because if you have a $200,000 truck, your truck payment is part of your cost to operate. So if you have a truck that's super expensive, like a lot of these trucks I saw in DC with all the extra crap and all the extra money people made spent on the trucks instead of spent on savings, it's not right. And it's not, because you could turn a profit right now. Well, maybe not right now, but you could turn a profit. Me, when I had my trucks, I didn't buy new trucks ever. Never bought new trucks. I bought used trucks. I bought all those old Conway trucks, or the trucks that I had, the Sterling L8500s. And I had one Freightliner Century that was garbage with the True Shift automatic transmission. And then I had a bunch of those Freightliner or International with the whatever the hell, they were the Pro Star ones with the True Shift transmissions. It sucked. I remember counting one time, it took me 20 seconds to get through an intersection while I was empty because the damn truck wouldn't shift out of it was just annoying. But people just need to use some common sense, and so again, Clarence, this statement here is wrong. And this is, unfortunately, this is an opinion a lot of people have. A lot of people have this opinion as well. It doesn't matter what kind of truck your cost to operate is the same. No, it's not in any regard. And you'll see too, because I'm putting a cost per mile calculator on the website. It'll be under the learning tab. That'll be up whenever I finish it. That'll be up there, and everyone can, get their cost per mile and print it out so they know exactly how much they need to make to figure out stuff. Because unfortunately, some people can't figure it out. Some people don't understand. You think it's just fuel, maintenance, truck insurance, and then boom, there's your cost to operate. No, that's not your cost to operate. But whatever. So this is Thursday. I've only got one more day until this week is over. Tomorrow, like I said, I'm going to have, I forgot his name now. I don't have it handy. Let me see if I can find it real quick, because you guys can look up the book if you want. Let me see if I can find it. Handy. I don't see it. Anyway, yeah, I don't see his name handy. Anyway, so I'm going to have an author tomorrow. He's going to come on and he's going to talk about this book he wrote. I think it was 11 years ago, and it was meant to out brokers who are being shady. He did, in his original comment to me, he said that he was, he was threatened with lawsuits and all this stuff after he wrote the book. So I think it'll be an interesting interview. I likely will disagree with him, but it's an interview. So I'm just going to let him talk for a couple of minutes, and we'll figure out what's going on after. But with that said, Justin Schrebner said, I bought a truck yesterday, paid cash. Well, did you pay $200,000 for it? I'm just kidding. Well, very good for you. Best of luck to all you guys. I will see everyone tomorrow at 2:00. We'll see you later.